Well, we are so glad for all the questions that we received over these past few weeks here. We want to get into one here that we received via text. And it reads, is there anything in the Bible that shows where the Garden of Eden existed?
Hmm.
Dr. Cruz, can you point to anything that we can find in Scripture that gives us some hints about where we can find where the Garden of Eden existed?
Isn't it an enticing question to know where the Garden of Eden was?
Very
So
much
many
so.
amazing stories, God walking in the cool of evening. Well, let me take you. I'm going to look over to my right because I've got my Bible, because I want you to hear from
Mhm.
the Bible. If you look in Genesis 2, verse 8, it will tell you that God planted a garden in the east. Now, that's not very descriptive. So let me jump down a couple of verses. It gives us some geographical pointers that we can refer from. It says in verse 10, a river flowed from the land of Eden, watering the garden, and then divided into four branches. And it goes on to list those four branches. Now, there's the Pishon, and then there is the Gihon, and then we end up with the Tigris and the Euphrates. And those at least sound a little familiar to me.
Dr. Yonker, anything else additional that you can shed some light? Is there a coordinate that I can punch into my GPS or help us out?
Well, again, I wish there were. That would make it fascinating for us to look at today. Dr. Cruz is correct that we do know of two of these rivers. The other two, we're not quite sure what they are or what they represent, but the Tigris and the Euphrates still do exist today, and we can find them on a map. However, while that is true, we have to be a little bit cautious about pinpointing it. Because if you read after Genesis 2, you begin to read through up to through Genesis 6, and afterwards you'll find out there was a global flood. And for Christian geologists that are studying the history of the Earth, it's possible that there has been some tectonic plate shifting, and so it's not easy to be precise, and so there's really no reason to try and identify some sort of sacred spot where the garden was. But when you step back from a big picture and you do look at the history of the Earth, a lot of people are aware that a lot of oil comes from the broader Middle Eastern regions. This is well known out there, and of course, oil is the remains, the decomposition of life, plant life, animal life, and so forth. And so, it is not illogical to assume at all that in the past the Earth was very different in the Middle Eastern region, and the abundance of oil there could be a sign that there could have been a very fruitful and vibrant garden there in the past.